Okay, this is Josh, aka X Released, and I'm going to talk about the moth fight here. A lot of players, both new and experienced, have a lot of trouble with this fight. It's one of the reasons I wanted to make a tutorial for it. So players know what they're doing. There can be a lot of RNG and trolliness to this fight, but a lot of it can be reacted to and controlled as long as you learn to recognize some things and execute a few techniques. Some basics about him. He has 32 HP. Your tempered sword does 8 damage, so you need to hit him 4 times. The fire rod does 4 damage, so you want to favor your tempered sword in this fight, definitely. The fire rod can be useful sometimes, but I tend to switch away from it right away, just to be on the mirror when I'm leaving the dungeon. That's kind of a preference thing. Ideally, you would switch to the mirror, towards the end of the fight when you're sure there'd be no use for the fire rod. So yeah, let's watch this first fight. Okay, so if you were counting there, I actually only hit him 3 times. There's an interesting thing with the dash against the block at the top of the screen. As Moth is sort of like activating or whatever, you can actually hit him twice with that dash. So that's kind of the best way to do the fight. And ideally what would happen every time is you just get the double hit and an easy 2-slash afterwards. I'll talk about my setup some on this. This is doable on every floor pattern, and that's kind of the main thing you have to adjust to when going for this. The floor can go up, down, left, or right. Here it's carrying me up, so I'm probably going to want to stand a little bit higher than I normally would. Now, I stand pretty high in this fight. A lot of players will stand, in the middle of the room, sometimes even lower, but it's very common to stand more in the middle. I dislike that. I like getting really close to him for one primary reason. If the floor is moving left or right, if you're further away, your dash is going to deviate more, because it's a longer dash, of course. So I really like standing close to him. I think it's easier to time. I think it's easier to position. But it's preference. You can still get the dash from lower in the room, but I recommend doing it this way. His hitbox doesn't activate at all to start, so you can just really stand right in the middle of him. It's no problem. So I move up quite a bit, and I start my dash about when his antenna reach the top of the room here. It's generally what I look at. And you should definitely be able to get this for experienced players out there. You should be able to get this at least 50% of the time. Like, it shouldn't be a huge random thing. If you're only getting it 1 in 10 times, you really need to work on your double hit, because double hitting him is pretty important. Not only because it's faster, but this fight tends to compound in badness the slower it is. The spikes start, shooting across the room and can be a real pain to deal with. So here's another double hit. And 2 easy slashes. Those slashes are just, they're pretty easy to execute. It's the ideal pattern where he just comes towards the middle of the room. Here the floor is moving to the right. So I compensate by nudging a little bit to the left here. I'm kind of covered by Moss left wing, but you see how far I am to the left. Again, start my dash about his antenna, reach the top of the room. This one, when the floor is moving this way, you're a lot of the times you're going to hit this spike like I do here. And that's fine. I mean, usually, if you have very low health, you might want to, not do the dash if you have that pattern. But other than that, that's consistent and it works well. It's not something to worry about. A lot of times on this pattern, he'll come below you. That can kind of be a pain to deal with. His hitbox and movement when you're above him is a little weird and hard to get used to. I do it here, fine, but here I think the floor is going to be moving to the right again. Okay, so again he comes below me. Can be a little timing on that can be a little tricky, but it's not too bad. Typical double hit. The floor is moving up and down, it's generally a little easier to get. Moving down. Alright, now, you see what happened there. I actually did get the double hit. You can tell. Let me rewind it some more. You can tell when you got the double hit because there's like this little hitch in his hurt sound, and he also blinks a little longer than normal. But like, if you hear his audio, it's sort of like he starts his hurt sound, then stops it, then starts it over again, and that can be like an audio cue to know if you got it. But also, despite the fact that I got the double hit here, I ended up having to hit him 4 times, if you noticed. One of those hits was actually eaten. And what's happening there, and this is what the main thing that gives people, nightmares with this fight. What's happening there is, enemies in this game are programmed to take damage from spikes, usually. In fact, 2 rooms before this boss, the most common strat for getting a key from a mummy is to hit it into a spike twice. And that deals a ton of damage to the mummy very quickly, and it's the best way to do the room. And there are a couple other areas where you can hit enemies into spikes, but here, the developers thought, if Moth is still programmed to take damage from these spikes, it's not going to be a very interesting fight, is it? It'd be over very quickly if Moth was taking tons of damage from these spikes. So they actually programmed him to be invulnerable to them. But this creates a problem where if you hit him into a spike, the spike's still trying to hit him and damage him, but it's doing 0 damage. And the spike's damage ends up overriding your sword damage. So you get, your hit just gets eaten. It's kind of something you have to learn how to, if he's against the spike wall, there's some techniques you have to start practicing and learning and considering when fighting him. Because if you're just hitting him into the spike wall, it's not going to do much. And one of these is what I just did here. He comes over to the side, hugging the wall over here. Now you could try and hit him just from the middle of the room, but your slashes are going to push him against the spikes over here. So it's very, very important when he moves to the right or left walls that you get outside of him so you're hitting him towards the middle of the room. This one little thing can improve your Moth fights, drastically. Being conscious of where you're hitting him. And so that hit did damage and that hit did damage. Whereas if I'd hit him from the middle of the room, there's a good chance it would have gotten eaten. And here's just sort of the same concept, getting outside of him. That's really important. More of the same going on here. I think I have one where he comes to the left wall. I'm not sure. Yeah, like here, this is kind of a situation you just play depending on your health. The floor's carrying me to the left, so getting around outside of him as he's moving to the right can kind of be tough before he attacks, and you'll often end up taking damage from this. This is another thing you'd probably play a little differently if your health was really low. But there it's fine. Mostly, anyway. And notice all these double hits. Hopefully, players can watch this and see what I'm doing to get that consistent. That wasn't a double hit, actually. And see, yeah, here he comes to the left. And again, I'm really hugging this left wall and pushing him towards the middle of the room with my slashes. Alright, now here's an interesting case. Alright, you saw what happened there. Here, when he comes up at the top wall, you gotta do something different. There's not really any space you can hit him towards that doesn't have a spike. So what I did right there was a poke dash, and those are actually able to damage him when he's up against his top wall. Not quite sure why they work the way they do. I suspect it's something to do with keeping Link's sword hitbox active longer, but not 100% sure what's going on there. But they work. It's mainly what you need to know. And you just hold your sword, and when you come into contact with Moth, you press the dash button. And that allows your poke to do the damage of a slash. Ordinarily, pokes do like half the damage of a slash. That's not what you want. Another thing is you definitely want to let go of your sword as soon as you dash. So it's a little bit of a different technique than like the poke dashes for cold stare, where the primary goal of the poke dashes is to get a sword charge while you're damaging cold stare, and then be able to spin him in the corner. Here you do not want a sword charge, so be sure to let go of B as you dash. And these are really important and useful for when Moth is hugging top wall. As you will see, a lot of these next kills, I'm just kind of demonstrating this technique and how useful it is, because he'll just eat your slashes all day against the top wall. There's a double hit, and then poke dash, 3 hit there. Double hit. That was a little bit risky to do that while he was attacking. Might not do that in a run, but you get the idea. That your slash is just going to get eaten there every time. Same there. You can also hit him kind of towards this block sometimes. The block won't overwrite your damage like the spikes will. So sometimes when he's along the top wall, you can slash him if he's near that block. I think I have a few examples of that here. So another poke dash. Super useful technique, especially for advanced play. For a beginner, you might find it kind of tough to do, but for advanced players, it is really good to be able to do that. because he will waste a ton of your time if you don't get that technique down. I got lucky that slash worked. But there's a block here, so there's a chance it does work. Alright, now see, that's the kind of thing you don't want to have happen when you're poke dashing, is to get a spin charge. It's better to just whiff your poke dash than try holding it too long and end up getting a sword charge. So it's definitely something you want to try to avoid. Don't be bad like I was there. That's when poke dashes go wrong. And you see there is what I was talking about earlier, where we pass this block and I'm able to hit him, damage him into it, and then get another poke dash in on the other side. So that was a pretty sweet fight. A lot of poke dashing here. Hopefully people are able to understand how that works. Again, slash into the block to damage him. Moving outside of him. Okay, yeah, that's some BS that'll sometimes work. As a dash kill against the side of the wall. Wouldn't recommend doing this a whole lot, actually. It can be risky. Although I think Crystal has a video on LTTP for HTTP where she gets a double hit against him in this kind of scenario. So I mean, it can be useful sometimes, but I would mostly avoid it. But yeah, I think that's the last clip. And that's sort of a basic rundown for how to fight Moth. Hope it proves informative to you speedrunners out there. Good luck.